Seems fair to me. Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Hey, you might be expecting to see Charlie Brennan. Instead, you have a person of color, me, Alvin Reid. Charlie a little under the weather this week, but he will be back next week. And hey, we're going to talk about Donnybash April the 11th throughout the show. So thank you for joining us this week. And our panelists this week are Bill McClellan, St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Wendy Wiese, KTRS, Ray Hartmann, Substack columnist, founder of the Riverfront Times, and Sarah Fenske is joining us this week as well. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, without bothering to tell the victim's family or tell the prosecutor in the Kansas City area, Governor Parson has pardoned Britt Reid, the son of Kansas City football coach Andy Reid. Both Republicans, Democrats, and pretty much seems like most of the state of Missouri was outraged. And I know that, Sarah, that I definitely was. And it goes beyond asking what was the governor thinking. I mean, this was just beyond the pale. So your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, outrageous is a good word for this. You have a 5-year-old girl who was the victim in this drunk driving incident and has brain damage that they feel could be permanent for her. I mean, it's just horrifying to think of something like this happening. And I will say this for Governor Parson. He has made a point of going through and looking when people have done their time to give them clemency after the fact, give them these pardons so they can go on with their life. This is a completely different case. This guy had not finished serving his sentence.
Well, and it was a short sentence anyway because he took a plea deal.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and the family was outraged, the family of the victim was outraged that the prosecuting attorney made a deal with the guy. So, you know, on top of that.
Yeah, so he can't do 3 years for almost destroying someone's life. It's terrible.
Well, and the fact, the irony that Daniel Riley is in court, that Janae Edmondson took the stand. Would Governor Parson ever dream of commuting a sentence if, you know, whichever sentence is handed down of Daniel Riley? Because essentially this was a point that McGraw-Milhaven was making on KTRS, but my first initial thought was I wondered if he was having a Mitch McConnell moment. I honestly did. Because he is a super fan with, you know, the Kansas City Chiefs. He went to the Super Bowl. Was he just not putting was he not connecting the dots? Because the outrage was, as you said, I mean, people were weighing in from other planets. They could not believe this commutation.
And I had a couple of thoughts about it. One, a governor grants clemency often for mercy, and that might be a case where someone's toward the end of their term and they might have a child or a spouse or a relative that's sick, and there's that kind of a mercy. There's another kind where a governor has the right to look at a terrible verdict and say, I'm going to reduce this because this verdict, in my judgment, was unfair, which is a legitimate role of a governor. In this case, he can't argue that because this is the plea the guy took to Bill's point. He agreed to this, and he agreed to it in lieu of taking a trial where he could have gotten, given the horrific result here, he could have got a lot more than a few years. And so he agreed to this. You can't argue there's no mercy thing. The other thing I picked up, and I'm actually going to be in my Substack tomorrow, is they talk about one of the terms is he's going to have one of those equip his car so that he can't start or something with it's like a breathalyzer.
Right.
It's like, why is this guy ever going to be behind the wheel of a car? In other words, at some point he's a recidivist. He had an accident that was bad. I don't know. He took the plea. You know what he did with his and the idea that we can't have a death penalty for your driver's license blows me away. I'm not saying everybody should get it, but why? That's like the one thing. Oh no, you can't take his license. Well, he should never drive. Regardless of how much time he should do, he should never drive a car.
You know, to change the topic a little bit, but stay with courts. Another very strange sentence was in the federal court where a fella, Mr. Trueblood from St. Charles, pleaded guilty to being an illegal arms salesman. And in Missouri, that's hard to do. I mean, it's hard to commit a gun crime here. But he sold all these like AR-style pistols and everything to undercover ATF people. And they told him, stop. And he wouldn't do it. And so he ends up being charged, pleads guilty, and was given probation.
Yeah, this guy, so he had guns that ended up at 30 different crime scenes that they're aware of. They think he sold about 250 guns illegally. And it's shocking to me because you see all the time in St. Louis, the feds are doing a very good job of rolling up these felons who are in possession. Once you've been a felon, you're not allowed to have a gun. They will get you for that. They will throw the book at you. You will do prison time. This guy supplies 250 different people, 30 different crime scenes, and Judge John Ross gave him probation.
And my former colleague, Robert Patrick, who's spokesperson for the U.S. Attorney's Office, instead of being outraged, was like, well, we couldn't prove intent, that he intended these guns to be used in crimes. I thought,
but he was told.
And John Ross is a former prosecutor. I mean, he's.
Yeah.
It was a very strange story to read.
You don't have to be against someone's Second Amendment rights to own guns to realize that in this state, the legislators and many others in power are absolutely hostile.
Well, this guy even went around that. I mean,
no, I understand,
you know,
but they are absolutely hostile even to the police in terms of doing anything to restrict guys like that. In other words, they don't look at this.
He's already been restricted.
Yeah,
he was
had been
breaking
restricted.
the law.
I get
Yeah.
it, but they just don't. I understand they know it's a break in the law, but they don't really think of it that way. They just think.
But I would say
they
just
don't
to that,
care.
I would say this is the judge and the prosecutor,
right.
and they're
I get it,
already
I get it.
beyond all that. They don't have to
Right,
fear.
right. Nothing to do with the legislature.
Yeah, this
Okay, but
that
the point is
nonsense
this
coming
is
out of
culture.
Jefferson City. But
I got it.
speaking of nonsense, this pardon. Okay, you mentioned this. I mean, can you be such a rabid football fan that you would take an action like this? I don't think so.
If you're
I
not
honestly
connecting
don't.
the dots, if you're having a moment, and you're the
Yeah,
governor, I agree.
I say, look, I'm a fair weather Chiefs fan. I don't know how I ever became. No, I like the Chiefs, and I have a lot of regard for Andy Reid. But this is actually embarrassing to everybody in that world because it's so obvious, and it's so.
But I thought the
think of all
governor's
African-
office said that he had not been contacted by anybody from the Chiefs organization. I mean,
that doesn't even
Don't you
matter.
think maybe he's swept up in
That's
the
what I
excitement
mean.
of them?
No,
like,
he is.
Maybe he's a Taylor Swift fan.
I don't
ridiculous.
I don't
Yeah.
question that, but what I
Yeah.
question is there is such a long list of black men who have been, who repeatedly, and there's a whole bunch of them that have been
Kevin
found
Johnson.
clearly are innocent, who he won't even listen to the case. You know, he just does it. It really is glaring, the inconsistency.
I'll close this on saying that before I came down today on Speak Up, I think it is, Andy Reid was on. He was being interviewed just as I was leaving the house, and the interview had come to an end, and they were 4 panelists on the show. Not one of them asked them about this ruling, because it was just all football. They had questions about, did you talk to Travis Kelce about Taylor Swift?
Yeah.
And how are you going to win 3 Super Bowls in a row? And I'm thinking like, okay,
Well, maybe
did you
he-
agree not to ask this guy?
Yeah,
You know, I'm not coming on if you're right.
I bet they
Sure
did.
they did.
Yeah, okay. All right, meanwhile in St. Louis, you know, the Parson decision took us nationally looking bad. And last week on KMOV, a story about black homebuyers suddenly turned into colored homebuyers instead of people of color who buy homes. Now, I have no idea how this happened, but I, for one, not just as a black person, but as a professional, thinks somebody's head should roll. I mean, this is inexcusable. Bill, what do they do over there at KMOV in the wake of this nonsense?
Well, I think that they're hiring, they must be some very old people. I mean, that colored people is an old term. I'm reading Chester Himes right now, Alvin. You know him, and he's writing about detectives in Harlem, black detectives, and he uses the term a lot. And when I was reading that in that book, I found it jarring. So it's just surprising to me. And I don't know if heads should roll or not, but I think they got an 85-year-old guy doing copy.
Or maybe somebody young and inexperienced, and
But that's not even a term you hear these days.
No, that's very, very true. I do think that there are people who are confused, and I hope you can speak to that, because when it is part of the identity of the name and the identity of the organization that is charged with doing all of these unpleasant, investigations into these types of awful situations, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, could it be switched to the National Association for the Advancement of People of Color? Or can you just speak to that?
Well, I would say that the idea when that term went out many, many, many years ago said we're going to keep that because that's the traditional name. And when you hear that name, it still resonates to a time that we've been around a long time, going back to literally the late 30s. So I understand why that name is not changed. There are other organizations, and I wish I could think of one off the top of my head, that I think man, that name is kind of archaic,
right?
And so I understand why you hold on to them. That's a crutch. When people write in the comment section, well, the NAACP says this, that's just that's clickbait. That's just trying to irritate somebody.
I agree with you on that last point. I don't know that it's easy to say head should roll, and you said it, but I mean, I don't know whose head should roll. Or, in other words, I think a lot of it's got to do with trying to understand. It's a ridiculous. I mean, it's not a little mistake. I mean, it's a bad mistake. I just don't know whose mistake it was, and I don't know anything beyond the circumstance of that.
Well, don't they have people who write copies?
And apparently it was changed. Now, according to the story, it said people of color, and somehow it got changed, and then Ted Knight of the news department over there, Mary Tyler Moore reference, just read what was on the teleprompter. But you got to catch that.
I think so.
But it doesn't sound like there was ill intent here. I'm not saying that this is excusable, but there was a case that happened in St. Louis a few years ago where someone said something that struck me as much more offensive and said that it was just a slip of the tongue. And it was like, how does that word come out of your mouth unless you're saying it casually? This feels like a confluence of factors.
I'll take that. And I know I'm on a panel of mainly print journalists. And when it's 5 o'clock in the morning, and I am not making excuses at all, but I'm saying that sometimes the tongue and the mouth does not go where you need it to go.
Sure.
That is.
I mean, we've all been there on this show.
That is absolutely no excuse. But when when you think
37 years, I've never misstated anything.
The hour and the sound, Martin Luther, sometimes your mouth just doesn't do it. And Kevin Steincross is still somebody whose name comes up in conversation around here as somebody who, wasn't given an opportunity to plead his case. It was just over for him.
Yeah. When that happened, I remember I did say that, it's like that thing said don't think of elephants for the next 30 seconds, and that's all you think about. So he was trying not to say that. But let me ask you something. Being a little bit more familiar with the day-to-day TV kind of thing, how many seconds do you have for the dump button? Because isn't somebody there who heard that? Could they have at least hit it so the guy's mouth is moving, but we don't hear what he says?
That would have to come from our control room here at 9 PBS and radio. It can be anywhere from 11 seconds. It can be 30 seconds. So it depends on the radio station and who's on the board.
My broadcast philosophy is if you put your foot in your mouth enough over years, people don't notice.
People don't even notice it.
It's like, well, it's just.
All right. Now, I'm also thinking that, there was some outcry, but I don't think there was a lot. Now, is that just disrespect for television news now? Like anything goes? Like he may have said it on purpose, and who cares? Not on purpose. What I'm saying is, if it came up on certain networks as opposed to other national networks, you might say that's just them being them. Has it come to that?
I mean, this might be ironic to be saying this on television, but I think it speaks to the fact that a lot fewer people are watching TV news these days. The demographics for them are pretty bad. It's mostly, frankly, a lot older people who can still get these channels. Everybody else is just streaming. They don't even get the access to ABC,
It's coming up
NBC.
on your phone. You have
and unless someone gives a clip on your phone, you're not even going to realize this happened.
Yeah, and isn't there sort of an offense scale? I mean, like saying colored people, it ranks rather low on it. I mean, there's a lot of words you could use that would be, horrible, terrible.
That's a good point, Bill. Other than it rankles me, like that's kind of high on my list.
Because I think we all remember the signs. There were the signs that are just kind of indelibly, imprinted in our memories from our history books, and that our parents. This was the world that once was out there, and so I think that word does have a lot of weight for a lot of people.
All right. Well, you know what? We're going to have discussions like this with you on April 11th at Donnybash. We really look forward to it. I mean, we really have the time to get into some issues and whatnot and really have a good time having it. And Sarah, you have sat on the stage with us, so you can share what it's like looking out at that fabulous audience and the importance of having that audience out there.
I don't know that I have ever been so nervous. Wendy was ill, and I got sort of a last-minute call, would you like to come on the Donnybash stage? And my husband is a Donnybrook super fan. He'd always dreamed of going to Donnybash. And I said, John, we have tickets to Donnybash, but I'm going to have to be coherent on a stage. And I was terrified. But I will say it was so fun because the audience is in such a good mood. And frankly, all of you fine people are cracking jokes. It's like a night of comedy, and I had to be the straight man.
But isn't it fun to see people who come from different backgrounds in terms of politics or local issues or what have you? Everybody's coming together to discuss the issues, to laugh about it, and it's a nice community feel-good event, which you need more of.
It's become kind of a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed it because it's fun to be up there. But people who go there say, hey, this is a lot of fun.
And it's a great cause. I mean, let's never forget that St. Louis supports PBS as well as any city in the country. We should be proud of that. And this is our way, really, from our perspective here, to connect with that audience. And it really, if you like, hopefully like our program, but also all the other programming on 9 PBS. I mean, there's so much that we give to the community, from the news hour, really the whole, everything about
and
the
there's
station.
some of our lovely audience. You're going to check us out now. It's and it really is fun being in a live, setting, and having the people out there, and you can see their smiling faces or their not so smiling faces.
Because usually we don't see their reaction when they're on the other side of the television.
Right.
Boy, you can hear it when they're out
Well, when
there.
you say something and people kind of groan.
Yeah,
I realize, well, that probably wasn't the best thing.
Okay. All right. No, so we do. We have a video package. We're going to check it out now.
Hey everyone, I'm Martia Crowder, Member and Viewer Experience Manager here at 9 PBS, and I am so excited that you're enjoying another episode of Donnybrook, but also excited that you have the opportunity to see Donnybrook live in action at Donnybash, and that's on April 11th this year, so that's just a couple of weeks out. The clock is ticking. You don't want to miss this phenomenal opportunity to not only join the 9 PBS family and become a member, but also to see Donnybrook live. So at the $75 level, you have the option of receiving the beautiful 9 PBS 70th birthday mug. Look at that thing. That is amazing. I can't wait to have that in my pantry. But then you also get that ticket to see Donnybrook live in action at the Sheldon Concert Hall on April 11th. You get a fancy springtime Donnybrook. And then at the $12 a month level, you receive a pair of tickets and the mug. That's a huge deal, right? There's no option there. You get both, 2 tickets and the fancy 9 PBS happy birthday mug. It's 70th birthday limited edition. It's going to be amazing. We have so many things in store for the 70th anniversary, but then we have so much in store for Donnybash. So join us on April 11th this year at the Sheldon Concert Hall. So give us a call at 800-568-9099. Call or text GIVE to that number, or go to our website, 9pbs.org. That's NINEPBS.org. Join us, become a member right now.
So that's 2 tickets to Paradise. Packing bags will leave tonight. Actually, it's April the 11th. And we look forward to seeing you. You play such an important role for us here at Donnybrook, at Donnybash. Good time will be had by all. Okay, well, Reid in New York, the governor, Democratic governor, says we got to get things a little bit more under control on the subway. And they've had some violent incidents there. Not commonplace, but she's taking action, and she's going to use the National Guard to kind of help out with the situation. Is that something that you could see working here in St. Louis on our metro lines?
No, I think, first of all, our system is safer than most people give it credit for. I know it gets in the news when it isn't, but it's overall safe. The role of the Missouri National Guard is to quell specific emergencies.
Is to protect the border.
Yeah, I was going to say
Hopefully when we build that wall across the Arkansas border, which we clearly have to do. Exactly. It's for specific emergencies. It's not a police force. It's not a security detail. And so I don't know much about the New York situation, but I think it'd be inappropriate here.
Well, you still have a city police force, and I know that this is not a popular opinion, but you still have a city police force that is woefully understaffed. And if we would ever see, an increase in or a crime wave, I would have no problem at all with the Missouri National Guard being called to St. Louis to try to keep the peace. Those of us of a certain generation, when we hear the National Guard, we think of Kent State. We think of all the things that can go wrong. But, the fact of the matter is that when Mother Nature goes haywire, it's always the National Guard that we call on. I would not have a problem, not in this particular instance, because you can't compare the subways of New York City to MetroLink. But, I don't have a problem with what the governor is doing in New York. I know you do.
Yeah, I would. And I think the idea of having soldiers, National Guard, or regular Army, anybody walking around the streets in America with semi-automatic weapons, it just does not sound like a good thing to me. I mean, I'd rather, and of course we all want more police, but prosecute the heck out of kids who do crimes or something. But to turn it over to say the police can't handle this, we need an army. Oh.
Yeah, I'm with Bill on this. And what would make it even more offensive to me as a city resident is it frequently feels that we are being fought by our own state government. What Missouri stands for and what St. Louis stand for are such different things. And they're just coming at us every which way, trying to pass laws that stop us from being able to pass our own ordinances. They want to take our airport. I mean, there's just all sorts of examples of how they're trying to use their power to control us. And the idea, as much as I'm sure the people in the Missouri National Guard are lovely folk who have good intentions, I don't want state military telling me what to do in a city when they've made it clear they hate St. Louis.
And let's be clear about something. It's not just the city police. The Metro is policed by a collaborative effort from the east side. This is St. Clair
County.
St. Clair County, the city, and St. Louis County. And when they did a study several years ago that I was the one person kind of sticking up for, they were very critical of bi-state for the failure of those agencies to communicate. And they took steps, my understanding, to address that the police are working together much better. And this is a case where we just stick up for our police. That I think that the police officers are communicating better, working better. And again, anytime there's a crime, I mean, if there's a crime 2 blocks from a metro station, it gets reported as such. And I don't want to be Pollyannish about it. Of course, any crime is too much, but I don't think there's any evidence.
I think it's worse than you think, right?
Well,
and when people are you're trapped in a little car and things are going wrong. That's a very scary thing.
Okay, what if, let me give you this alternative. What if you're not armed, but you are in uniform, and then you have the direct, you're like a living 911 call because you have your little thing here. So if something happened, you can immediately report it. I think people respond for some reason to people in uniform.
I agree.
I think that would help even if they weren't armed.
But they have security, riding these trains and on these platforms. I don't know that anybody's saying we have this urgent need to get more security on there. Bring in the military.
Okay, they're doing it in New York, but I'm not saying that we're New York.
Doesn't make it right.
We had an unarmed Metro security guy who was shot and killed a couple years ago, you know, at the Delmar station.
I think if they're in uniform and they like wear
And
like
a couple of them, two or three of them together,
and that, like a smart like beret, you know, that you wore that signified you were with the Metro
Curtis
like, little
Sliwa,
stuff.
that's right. Oh my God!
I think people would respect
Alvin,
that.
I would like to disassociate with myself with the words of my fellow founder. I really think I understand there's crime, but there's just somebody, you know, I can't say I write it every day, but certainly the sporting events and whatever, I just don't feel that it's just, I mean, there's crime everywhere right now, and we have a big crime problem.
I don't think a train car is
yeah, but I don't think
snakes on a plane.
I do not think
snakes on a plane. I'm sorry,
Bill.
but
maybe you think there's snakes on the Metro cars, but the point is, it's not as bad as we sometimes
it may not be, but like I said, that's
I don't think
if we could settle.
bad.
If
you're on the car,
if we're gonna do north, south, east, west, whatever, the first thing is that people who ride it have got to feel safe, and you could tell them you ought to feel safe, but if they don't feel safe, you got to take some action. Okay, tell you, the money is safe in St. Louis County right now, but Bill Sam Page won't let it go because he wants to get the budget cuts. I guess officially passed, and then he will let go money to not-for-profit organizations and whatnot. Look, I think that you gotta, you know, if you're gonna fix the budget, you gotta fix the budget, and there's some tough decisions, and Sam Page is making one. You agree with that, don't you, Bill?
No, I don't, Alvin.
You're letting me down.
You know, I mean, these non-for-profits who are expecting this money, and they build their budgets around this money, and you tell them you're going to get this money, and all of a sudden, well, you're caught in a political fight. And Sam Page is probably right about the budget, but you can't, force these nonprofits to suddenly not get the expected money that they depend on.
Yeah, it's his job to work with the county council. I'm saying this is a hostage taking, is what this is, and you just don't do this.
But wait! In that leadership, in that
no, it's a hostage taking.
No,
I guess one person's hostage taking somebody else's leadership.
Not when
I think
you've
it's a
given
hostage
your
taking.
word, and these people believe that this money is coming, and they have already spent the money in some cases because they thought it was coming, and then it's like, oh, eeny, meeny, miny, sorry, not for profits.
Well, aren't they being irresponsible for spending money that they don't actually have in the bank account?
I mean, they were told this was coming. They were
coming.
told they got this grant, COVID relief funds. And what's crazy is this is like such a drop in the bucket for the county. Like in one case, they're getting $25,000. That's like a rounding error for the county.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, when you're a nonprofit and you're counting your pennies, that can really screw you up.
It's terrible.
We got to balance budgets, right? Just tough decisions must be made. So somebody makes a tough decision, everybody says, oh, no, not them or not us. So where does the budget get cut?
But you don't do it this way. I mean, this is like...
How do you do it then?
You remember the old National Lampoon famous cover that said, buy this magazine or we'll shoot this dog? That's what this sounds like. I mean, you can't...
Well, what's your remedy then?
My remedy is that he needs to sit down with the county council and work this out.
Yeah,
that's his
do it on the
job.
backs of
You have to fix it, and you do not hold the people that are running good not-for-profits and say, well, if you don't do the X, Y, and Z, these people die. You just don't do it that way. It's not the right way to govern.
Okay, but I don't think he's responsible for people spending money that they don't have. I think that's
not even the issue.
No, that is the issue.
But if the county promises me that the money is coming, am I wrong in spending it?
And then you hire somebody, some poor single mom struggling, Alvin, and she's expecting that paycheck for the work she's done, and all of a sudden, nobody gets it.
And Alvin, let me add
Sorry,
one
I
other
have
thing.
to be a leader.
I'd like to add one other point. If this was something that was like a pet project of the councilman, and this was something they were doing and they wanted, and it was some stupid thing, then you could say, I'm not going to give you this candy unless
leadership.
you do this. That's okay.
Yeah.
But when you involve a third party that's innocent and uninvolved, it's not something the county council, and they're doing important work that the
nobody
federal
else wants
funding
to
was
do.
designed
Right.
for. To hold them hostage as a third party, hold all the pet projects of the councilman hostage you want, but because that's not really hostage taking, that's just negotiating. But when you bring in an innocent third party like that, it's a hostage take.
Okay. All right. Well, Boeing has got a conference center, and I guess they want to sell it, and a Catholic organization wants to buy it, but thus it would be taken off of the tax rolls. Now, to me, not a good idea. How do you sit on it, Sarah?
Well, I mean, we can't just go around saying we're only going to sell to people who will keep it on the tax rolls. Like at that point, you'd probably have a pretty good lawsuit for religious discrimination. Beyond that, I feel like the county might actually get lucky here that this group chose to buy this. You know, my paper, the Riverfront Times, reported a little more than a year ago, there was a cult, an alleged cult, that was pretty seriously looking at this same property. This is a cult that has been accused in some of their other properties of moving a bunch of people in, having unlicensed drug shelters. The leader supposedly raised people from the dead. I mean, the Catholics look decent in comparison.
Well, and this
it's
is
hard to argue with that, right? But I will.
This is the Augustine Institute. It's a conservative group, and they will have people coming in from all over the world. So I agree with you, Sarah. You can't say, yeah, well, the Catholics want it, so no, that's going to do something to our tax base, so we can't do that. I mean, that's going to get you in a lot of hot water.
Yeah.
Some of my best friends are Catholic, and so I
Thank you.
yeah, but no, to me, it's absurd even to think about that element. In other words,
Right. I think it's the conservative nature of the group that's going
make
in.
it, you know, and
personally.
it seems like a perfectly fine use to me. But I mean, the idea of all the things that should not come into play in a situation like this is, well, are you going to contribute to our tax rolls? If it's the right use, and if there's somebody else who's got a competing use, that's one thing. I don't think it's automatic, but that factor of
Well, you know, there was a letter to Donnybrook last week from somebody from Mr. Crow from University City about how University City has a right to be upset when Washington University is buying property that was on the tax rolls to take them off. And I thought his letter made a lot of sense.
But this is one property. I mean,
Right, right.
so I think that's
But I mean,
the
I'm saying it's not
distinction for me.
absurd.
And
Right.
the issue at Washington University has to be everybody accepts that its educational mission is very important. When it starts getting into, and this is a concern in Clayton, U City, and the city, when it starts getting into purchasing property and becomes essentially a residential landlord, now it's gotten outside its mission. And their concern, which I think is a just one, is why are we letting you be a commercial landlord?
But they were talking about being on the tax roll.
Well, no, I'm saying, but you're able to you're essentially renting and you're taking advantage of your tax exempt status. And that's a very different issue. Than,
All right. Well, is this kind of like blowback on churches in general not paying tax? Because I think there's a growing number of people that are kind of like, you know.
Perhaps. Yeah, perhaps. But I do think it is the conservative, I think it is a conservative background of the group that is that's going to be taking over, that's caught the attention of the people who suddenly are concerned about the tax rolls on this one particular piece of property.
Okay, so we get it. Cult, conservative Catholics. Now, what's in the middle? You know, like if the United Methodist Church wanted to, right? Nobody would have a problem. I think it's a
even within churches you have the right and the left, as everybody knows.
That is definitely true. I think that it's a philosophical argument more than even like a religious argument. And meanwhile, why is Boeing selling this? Does anybody? That's the part that I.
Well, who needs offices anymore? You know,
Well,
I mean, I'm sure
that's
Boeing,
true.
they're all collaborating via Zoom, and
So
you
true.
don't need this giant campus. It's interesting though. You know, the Catholic Church has been shedding a ton of properties because they had huge assets. Not exactly a growing church these days, and so it's interesting that this particular wing of it is like, let's go buy some additional.
I didn't think that was notable.
Yeah.
That was
that's
surprising.
kind of contrary to current trends.
Right.
All right. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. We're not a cult. We're not a religion, but you can follow us just like that. Hey, let's check out some information on upcoming Donnybash on April the 11th.
Hey everyone, I hope that you're enjoying this Donnybrook episode just as much as I am, and you know what I know that you will absolutely enjoy? Donnybrook live at Donnybash, the Sheldon Concert Hall on April 11th. Springtime is in the air, and so is Donnybash. If you're loving what you're seeing tonight, you will absolutely be thrilled to see it live in person. That's right. So I'll tell you a couple of ways that you can become a member and the ways that we'll say thank you. So at the $75 level, you get the option of that beautiful 9 PBS birthday mug. It's our 70th birthday. That's right, folks. You have helped us to get to 70 years here at 9 PBS. So we want to say thank you by sending you that mug or a ticket to see Donnybrook live in action on April 11th at my favorite place, the Sheldon Concert Hall. So then at the $12 month level, you receive 2 tickets and the mug. That's right, 2 tickets and the mug. You don't want to miss this incredible opportunity to rub elbows with the Donnybrookers and the cool 9 PBS staff. That's right, we'll be there. You know, we'll meet and greet you, but you'll get to see your favorite Donnybrookers live in person, drinking some cocktails, chatting away. It's going to be a great night. So give us a call at 800-568-9099 or go to our website, 9pbs.org. Thanks so much.
Yes, dial that number. Yeah, dial that number. Join us. It's a great time. I mean, Bill's family is there. Wendy's just Wendy, you know.
Are you kidding? This is hilarious coming from this guy who is a born entertainer who should seriously be on stage at Las Vegas, because the minute they introduce you, you become Alvin Reid, superstar entertainer.
He becomes Nathan Detroit.
That's exactly right.
That is
That's
actually,
exactly
you're right.
right.
You're
From
right.
Bearings Hall.
You're right.
Right?
And I have to share with you that my first experience was like yours. Charlie was not available, and so I was like a guest, and I was on the show. And I'll tell you what, it was the most nervous I ever was the first time that Martin asked me to sit in this seat. And I thank God Bill called me and actually asked me, and I had to had 2 days to, thank God, not a week.
And that reminds me of another thing about Donnybash. It's fun. It's really live TV. I mean, like, there's no 30-second delay or 5-second delay. And if people don't understand that things go wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
True. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Right.
Yes,
and it's
they do.
fun when they do, because you can kind of tell people looking at it, said like, is this on TV? And it's kind of like, yes, this is on TV right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and another thing that we want to remind everybody about is this is the season. We're coming up in the season for anniversaries and Mother's Day and Father's Day and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we meet so many people every year at Donnybash who say, this was my anniversary present, or this is my birthday present, or what have you. So if you are looking for something, because we don't need additional scarves or ties or purses or anything like that. We need to have experiences, and so this is a really nice experience.
And this will be a new experience for all of us because we have not done it in April before. And you know, you're thinking to yourself like, man, what's the weather going to be like? And if it's anything like it is now, it's going to be 90 degrees outside.
It could be 95 or 25.
Yeah, exactly. You can wear shorts to.
That's right.
Right. Donnybash in April. We look forward to seeing you then. I'll tell you what, this program does not need to be rebranded because everybody knows Donnybrook and everybody knows Donnybash. But St. Louis Business Journal had a lengthy article about does St. Louis need to rebrand itself? And as I read through the article, I thought to myself, like, man, it seems like I've read this article about 75 times since I moved back to St. Louis in 1995. Bill, what should we be?
Well, I kind of like global warming works for us. You know, no lines, traffic light. I don't know. I like you, Alvin. I've read these stories and written a few of them over the many years. That what we really need is just a rebrand, and everything will be better. You know, and I wish.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends come from out of town to visit me here because I've lived in a lot of places before I moved here. And they're often so pleasantly surprised by how cool various things in St. Louis are and how lovely it is. And, you know, I take them to Art Hill and it blows their mind. At the same time, they also have a lot of questions about the things that are janky and like, what's up with your streets, these potholes? I just lost a crown. I think at core, St. Louis's problem is not a branding problem. It's that we have some things here that are broken and we need to fix. And people are going to pick up on these things until we figure out how to fix them. And there's no slogan that's going to solve that. But guess what? That's true for a lot of American cities as well.
You know what? It's kind of, you know, and you make such a great point, Sarah. It's like on Broadway, we have soft openings. You know, you have soft openings out of town. We're not ready for we have to fix what needs to be fixed. and then you decide how we're going to present the city in a new light. But this is not the time, in my opinion. I mean, we just have some glaring things to clean up before we say, hey, come and check us out.
Well, it is true, though, that when people come here, they are
pleasantly surprised.
I will take them to the Hill for lunch and sit there. And the last time I did it, there was a bicycle race going around the hill.
Yes.
Forest Park. There's just so much to like about here, but I don't know how you brand that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm with you that it's not a slogan thing. I think there was an article in the Business Journal written by a friend of mine, Joe Blanner, Friendship Castile was involved in that, and they had a really good analysis of how we need to address the population question here. We've got to figure out a way to improve, and so it's almost like we got to get that first. We got to start thinking of ways to reverse this kind of. It's not a sharp decline, but we've got, compared to, as they pointed out, compared to other cities, we've really fallen behind, and we've got to come up. It almost starts with that, where we got to have a strategy to try to identify some things. To what you guys have said, the thing I think is underestimated about St. Louis is the quality of life. I mean, the cost, whether it's the cost of living or the quality of the restaurants, you name it, and the cultural institutions, which, as you know, I don't think they all should be free to tourists, but I think that we have so much to offer, and somehow we've got to get past this. We got to, on one hand, address the population thing as a real issue, and then we've got to work back from that and try to come up with.
How do you? I mean, I can see where the rebranding folks are trying to address the population loss.
No, I understand that, but I think that part of it is it's as simple as getting a better regional strategy. I mean, we have so many warring fiefdoms. That's one thing.
But I mean, we do have a regional strategy on this. This is how they came up with the STL Made slogan, and they've put a lot of time and effort into developing that. I do think as long as we continue to lose population, that's going to lead the day. And until we can get the crime situation under control for 2 consecutive years, I understand we're down right now. I'm enjoying it being down. Hope we can continue that. I think that's going to be critical. Ness Sandoval, who's a demographer at St. Louis University, he has talked about the moment where we should have been all hands on deck trying to grapple with the population decline was back in the 90s, when you could start to see that black families were leaving St. Louis. And nobody was that alarmed about it. Everybody just kept, whistling.
That continues to be the problem today.
And it continues to be the problem.
And we really have to get over our civic inferiority complex, which I've always called it. And, we do talk about the crimes, and I agree with you. Crime, for example, is obviously the top problem, but it is also the top problem in a lot of other places. And we've got to try to get some sense of community where we just start realizing, and I know it sounds a little hokey, but whether it's the city, the county, St. Charles County, we've got to start seeing ourselves as one region.
Okay, all right, I hear all this, okay, but I guess I got to go Madison Avenue. The way to tie this together, and maybe to get us to believe in ourselves, is to come up with something that we can all say and grasp. Now, we got the art, and we got those horses, the Clydesdales, okay? And everybody recognizes those two things. Do you play off that? Do we find something new? But I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea to try to find something that we can all relate to convince ourselves first, and then we convince the world.
But again, I thought that was STL Made.
Yeah.
No? You guys don't like the slogan?
Because we've been down that road,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because in the story, in the Business Journal story, it was like, well, we got STL Made, but the STL Made people said, like, well, we have a regional, it's STL Made. And you had like 11 people saying, like, we have no identity, we have no regional, and then somebody says, well, we have STL Made. These are people in the same story.
But a tagline, when you are coming up on I believe in August, will it be the 10th anniversary of Michael Brown? And that propelled us to intergalactic status in a negative light that has followed us for a very long time. So just to pretend that if we click our ruby heels together, and we come up with a catchy slogan, we've got real issues that need to be addressed by leaders and, elected leaders, and hopefully they will be. But it's going to take a lot more than a new identity tag.
Well, I mean, look, Anheuser-Busch is selling plenty of beer, Apple is selling plenty of phones, but yet they put a lot into commercials and just trying to put their image out there in a positive light.
You mean like Vegas has what happens in Vegas
Stays in Vegas.
Right.
We need something like that.
And we need something like that.
That's
No,
what
we
I'm
obviously,
saying. Right.
the thing is, if the folks out there are looking to us, apparently we're still working on it. Okay. Well, I don't have a slogan offhand.
And
I do think we should lead. I'm sorry, but I was going to say I think we should be not underestimating the quality of our culture and life. Something we got to work
No
off
lines, light traffic.
Yeah, we
cheap
got to work
homes.
off of you know.
That's
we're in the middle
There
of
you go.
everything.
Well, I do have one.
affordable and priceless.
Yes,
There you go. See, we work on this, we're going to get there. I will tell you
We're
this.
priceless.
Missouri Valley Conference basketball tournament is in St. Louis right now. They have re-upped. They're
On the
coming
Big
back.
550.
Okay. And I'll tell you what. The folks and the fan bases that come here from the Peorias and down in Carbondale and up in Des Moines, I guess where Drake is, they are really excited to come to St. Louis once a year. And I experienced the entire weekend. And downtown kind of buzzes, and they really like coming to St. Louis. We got to capture that. Yeah. And maybe we use those folks and put them on a commercial and say, like, you know, like, hey, nothing happened to me. Well,
hey, there you
St.
I like
Louis,
that.
nothing happened to me.
I like that. That's got a ring to it.
Is beer, you know, because brews and zoos and all this other stuff that we've been talking about for decades. Now, apparently, cannabis is $1.4 billion.
I was headed right there.
I can't get past this. Nothing happened to me. I think that's got a ring to it. I like that.
I can't even remember it.
You can have all kinds of different people, young, old, all kinds of backgrounds. Nothing happened to me.
Right, that happened to
I
me.
like that.
Right. Oh, hey, man, that's a good one.
There you
all
go.
right.
Reid
well,
McClellan,
Wendy mentioned it. We have found out that Missouri went just wacky for marijuana when it became legal. Beat out Colorado's first year. Illinois' first year. Ray, I mean, seriously, should pot be part of our standard in St. Louis? Like,
well, a lot of people predicted, I was one of them, that we would, you know, keep in mind that the revenue is very real. And
except for the city, remember they didn't.
That's right. They didn't do the paperwork.
1 quarter.
Yeah.
Give us time. We're late bloomers
and
here.
I think that whatever one thinks about pot, that horse is, you know, out of the barn. And so there's going to be, obviously, there's going to be some opportunity costs for different industries and so forth when that happens. But there's no question that any questions people had about the power of this as a form of taxation, those of us that thought it would, I think, have been validated by that. I mean, I think clearly it is a significant source of revenue. And remember how much of that revenue existed before but wasn't being taxed. It was illegal and so forth. I think it's very important to embrace this.
I think what's unfortunate, though, as much as I'm very happy about this, I'm glad it's legalized. You know, if you talk to people who own bars or restaurants, they feel like it's not like this money is just money people were saving under their mattress and now they're going out and spending it on cannabis. People used to go to bars much more. People have seen a big dip in their business. People are happy to stay home, have their little gummy and scroll their phone. And so it's taken some money, I think, that was going to more outward-facing substances such as alcohol and put it into something that's maybe it makes you a little more of an introvert.
Right, but now the tax is
bummer.
higher, obviously, on cannabis products than it is like going down and buying a beer. So thus, I mean, if I'm the state, you know, and as bad as our state is, if I'm the state, I can't, you know, like, no, I'm sorry. You've got to figure out a way. You need a slogan at your bar to get people to come in.
I get that it works great for the state. I do feel bad for some of these bar owners who are like, what happened to my
They made it through the pandemic, and now they're up against this, too.
I want young people to get out and start drinking again. I think they're all too inclined to just maybe have one and go home, is what I hear from the 20-somethings that I work with.
There's a public safety component to that to some extent, although I'm sounding very old when I say that, because, and it shows how removed I am from, you know, having much of a, you know,
nightlife.
Life.
9 o'clock is
just a
the
life,
night.
you know, that I didn't think about that. It seems to me a lot of bars are still doing okay, right? So I mean, I don't think it's going to knock out the bar business, but it's like I've been saying forever, like when the Rams left, the monies get recirculated when
that's right.
Everything's connected,
right?
And so when one thing is great, it hurts something else, and that's why I always thought we were overly worried about when the Rams left town, all the money's going to go with them.
Well, you made the same point about casinos, too.
Exactly.
That
Yeah.
money comes from
It's dog eat dog.
Well, all right, so we want more marijuana sales, but we don't want more dispensaries because people have a problem with, oh, no, I don't want it here, I don't want it there. I mean, that seems like a little bit of a... Like
They're everywhere.
Yeah, they're everywhere. I mean...
They're about to do a whole nother round of these micro licenses, and
and they're doing it by lottery, and that when Parson gave this to Tilly and let him run the marijuana thing, this was going to happen. The people who joined Tilly's organization got the first licenses, and they said, well, we're going to take care of everybody else with mini licenses. It's talking about the black community and people, old hippies and people who've been doing this for years. But it's not working out that way. Now it's just a lottery.
Well, but we have to be very, very careful in terms of future planning because, as has been the case with Colorado and these other states, as you mentioned, that are ahead of us, they plateau, and then what?
Well, then we just have that money.
Yeah, well, and I don't know what, I'm going to extinguish the marijuana cigarette here or whatever, but Colorado legalized marijuana 7 years ago, and Illinois is coming up on 3 or 4. It seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? Inflation, costs, all that. I think that's why we beat them in the first year. I don't think we really were out there just, doing all the cannabis in the world.
I don't think we're as conservative as some of our political silos suggest when it comes to this type of recreational.
Well, you know what? And I think there's other things that are coming down the pike that prove that also. That yes, we are very conservative, supposedly, until marijuana comes up, and right now there's other referendums that are coming that the legislature wants desperately to try to change the majority of the vote on. So we can be liberal when we want to be,
and we could have testimonials at those dispensaries. Nothing happened to me. That would work. It all fits into the civic theme you've given.
Yeah, well, there you go. And just note to the legislature, if cannabis sales are working this well, why are we dragging our feet on legalizing gambling? Yeah. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense.
Well, once again, it's revenue it's not like legalizing gambling is going to create gambling. It exists. And it was much like the argument with pot. It exists. You can't change it. Well, I think the world would be better off, frankly, if we didn't have so much gambling. And there's obviously, I've known some problem gamblers. It's a very serious problem when it happens. But the reality is it exists. And the question is, do you want your share of it, or do you not want your share of it?
I mean, I know that we're in a period of transitioning from the old ancient world that I come from, and you guys come from too, not you, Sarah, but into the new world. But it is still jarring for me to see on television, DraftKings, or that's bizarre to me. Even though I know it's real,
It's real. I know.
It's weird.
I honestly thought I would see that day before.
The marijuana day.
There you go.
Yeah.
I was going to say, when I was in college, I was thinking, one day they're going to legalize gambling because gambling is legal in Las Vegas. Okay, I never thought you could go down to the marijuana store. Yeah. I thought the day would never come in America where it would.
I used to think, when I was like 21 years old, I used to think pot will be legal in 10 years.
Did you?
I did. I was really convinced of it.
You weren't off by much. And keep in mind, in case of Missouri, the state of Missouri is in the gambling business with the lottery.
Sure.
Yeah. It's not, when everyone wants to moralize about it, it's in the business.
Well, and the problem is, though, and the problem with that is, first it was, marijuana, now it's gambling. Right. Your biggest problem is your 2 states next to you all have legalized these things, so that means your money is leaving the state.
That's the whole point.
That's the problem.
We've done that forever with, frankly, the adult entertainment. We've zoned it into, St. Louis area has adult entertainment. It's just zoned it into Illinois so that Missouri doesn't have to lower itself to take the taxation. And I guess maybe that's the strategy they want.
Well, Joe Holloman tells a great story about a friend of his who still will take his, lit marijuana cigarette under the deck and off into the corner, and his wife will yell down, "It's legal now, honey." Oh, that's right. That's right. It's legal. It's legal.
I mean, it takes some.
It's
it
true.
takes
It takes
some
a
getting
while.
used to.
It takes a while.
Right. I was going to say, there's a lot of
The
things.
children of the 70s.
We should be
we're
clear.
not
None of
used
us
to this.
condone any of this decadence.
No, I'm telling you.
right.
Oh, exactly. It was right, a younger age. All right. Let's go to letters. Ray's right. We do pay a lot of taxes to the federal government, and they spend trillions more than they take in on boondoggles like MetroLink expansions. That from Larry Snopek, Alton, Illinois. It's hard to say light rail has not economically transformed a certain area when the system's total footprint is already so small. We need to invest in expanding it so that using it making it more convenient for people. Increased ridership should naturally help with the safety issue and make the economic benefits more visible, which will make future expansion more viable. A very lucid letter from Matthew Stoddard of St. Peter's. Regarding Girl Scouts, when you voluntarily join a group, you agree to go along with the rules, not say what rules you will follow and what rules you won't. No doubt that what they wanted to do was for a good cause, but there is no reason this could not have been done outside the umbrella of the Girl Scouts. That from Vicki Brown of St. Louis County. You can write to us at Donnybrook, care of 9 PBS, 3655 Olive Street, St. Louis, Missouri, 63108. Send us an email to donnybrook@9pbs.org or a X tweet, hashtag DonnybrookSTL. Call us on the comment line, 314-512-9094. And you can catch the show podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, and TuneIn. Once again, Donnybash, April 11th. Donnybash, yes, right. Yes, it's Brash, baby. Right. April 11th, 5:30 p.m. at the Sheldon. Sarah Fenske, thank you for sitting in. You may not be on stage, but we look forward to seeing you at Donnybash. You're going to be there.
I will be there.
We hope to see you there as well. Charlie, get better. We'll see you next week. Everybody, stay warm over the weekend, but we're going to have, or cool, or dry, or we'll see you here next week. Thanks so much for watching.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9 PBS.